All right, do we want to do Parks and Rec first or Sheriff's Department? Oh, we got to wait on Robin.
This is workshop, correct?
This is just a hearing workshop type thing, yeah. This is not, nothing to vote or anything like that, but. And then there's two different ones for the Sheriff's Department. One has the red highlighted, and that is removing an SRO officer that could potentially be removed if the school board votes to close SIAM. It would no longer need that SRO officer at all. Discussion with Josh right now is well, that we need to have with Josh is can we do that? Because this is a contract position. This is not something that is in their actual operating budget. This is something above and beyond what that is. So, yeah, that's going to be part of the vote on Thursday for the school board. They'll start at Hunter in the fall.
Be honest, I'll just go ahead and take it out, regardless of whether they think it is a matter of maintenance of business, because that would force the office holder to have to take us to Chancery Court. And since he's refused to make a list of his employees and abide by the TCA code, he go down like an F-16.
Okay, well, I like the way that Brad thinks.
Well, plus, even with taking that position out, they are still above what he requested at that meeting. Even with taking that additional position out, they are still above the number of positions requested. Not the total dollar amount, but the number of positions.
So I'm assuming that gets written up to step raises that they've been giving out over the years?
Oh, well, I mean, that's all in there in my schedule.
Right. So then how are they funding the employees? Or is that part of the shell game?
Their total salary. I mean, for their total budget has their step increases included in it.
Yeah, I did a separate column in the payroll schedule, which I did not print off because I'm not so much paper here lately. But it is in there. So the step raises is in there, plus what he did with step raises, which was significantly higher. And I asked for clarification on that, never got it. And so what I did is gave him benefit of the doubt and gave him pretty close to 50, probably around 40% of it. And still came out. So.
Okay.
Because I read through their schedule and went through and literally pulled hire dates and saw where person by person, every single employee, and put it in a schedule. Which, if you go back and look, if you still have the one, do what?
I like that.
If you go back and look at the one I did, it's got all that in it, and you've got a column for the step raises that I came with based on his schedule and their hire date, and then you can see another column where I just took the difference and just spread it across everybody because I couldn't figure out where the extra stuff came from, and I needed to get it in there. So since I had it by person, I didn't want to just put it in one line, so I just took the total and spread it out by everybody.
So.
Just so that way I'd at least have a number, and that way all the taxes and everything would calculate properly. Otherwise it wouldn't have. So because of the way I had the schedule set up. Because I don't want that. What I'm saying, it can't kind of put it on. It just didn't make logical sense.
I think that's been a recurring theme.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really come to a head because of the request by the commission chair with the payroll schedules. I didn't have any issues with any departments other than this one. I mean, there were some that were off a little bit. And so just like with everybody else's, if they were off a little bit from last year, I did not decrease them because you can't because of maintenance. None of them were significant when I went in and ran the payroll schedule. So it was probably some sort of miscalculation last year. So if they were off a little bit, it stayed at the same amount it was the previous year. Otherwise, it adjusted to whatever it should be. And most of them went up a little bit. just because of the 4% and so forth that were in the prior years.
Okay,
But there were a couple that weren't nice, so.
okay. So this one comes in, what, total on jail 81,000 up, and total on the sheriff's department down with the SRO removed goes down 96.
Yeah, so the total decrease for both departments, just across the board, is $15,000. It's not material. Now, for the sheriff's department, it's more than the jail. But, those are intertwined, and part of the issue that we're having is the fact that they don't have people properly classified. And so you got people working in the jail that's getting paid out of the sheriff's department and vice versa. So that's the other thing that convolutes this whole mess.
It really shouldn't be happening though.
It should not be happening. So we gotta get that's gotta be cleaned up. I've already made them aware of that. It's gotta be cleaned up, and so we're gonna start working on that as soon as I get all this done.
Okay.
I feel like I'm ruffling feathers. Well, when we did this payroll exercise, when they were asking for the increases, that's how this all came to light. Because otherwise, I don't do anything with their payroll and HR other than we process it. And so when they were sending over this paperwork and I was looking at it compared to what's in there, and of course Jacqueline would bring it to me and say, hey, just be aware, this is gonna put them over in this line item or whatever. That's how this all started. So the more we dug, the more we found. And I still have several in the drawer that have not been done yet because they have not fixed the line items. And that doesn't include the year-end adjustments where we've already done some departments where we have to go in and make some adjustments. They still haven't done theirs, and I gave them all the stuff, so that's gotta be done before June, what did we tell them, June the 9th? Or 6th or something like that. First week of June. They've gotta come back to us with those adjustments because they've gotta be fixed before we close the books.
And if they don't, what recourse do we have?
If they don't do their adjustments, you set it from here in the budget committee. And if they want to take issue, then they can take issue with the full floor, or they can go to the chantry. And I don't think if I was them, with the aircraft carrier being caught in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, would I want to hunt for land?
All right, so what's everybody's thoughts? Which one do you want Carolyn to run with as far as the numbers go? Because we're still kind of pending Thursday and what we're going to vote, what Board of Education is going to vote on.
So we built one.
Or we'll remove the SRO for the time being?
But they requested them to, didn't they? Well, they have 14 SROs listed. They have less than 10.
We pay for 16.
So,
Because we pay for 6 and the school board pays for 10.
they only have 4. I think there were 10. Yeah, I think there's only 14 listed.
Okay.
I don't know about the other 2. However, I know.
They wanted one extra for a floater and then a lieutenant.
They may be misclassified. I just know how it's coming up in the payroll system. But however, I know there are only 10 actual ones at schools. So, I mean, I don't have control of that, so I can't answer it. They'd have to answer it.
And understand that they have to get pulled for the jail or something like that because that has to be manned. But to my knowledge, I thought the SRO officers had to be manned as well, so. Per the contract anyway. Brad, are you gonna is financial management gonna pick up and renegotiate the contract?
We never have in the past that I'm aware of. That has never come through our committee. But I would, looking back in history, using the layout here minus the SROs. Goes to reasoning also is, where is their representation? Ever since we started budget hearings.
They've not showed up.
Okay,
They're showing
the main
up.
department hadn't, but has authority to delegate somebody his organization. Chief Deputy came, and he came to represent the messenger, is more or less. But now here we come down to a draw. We gotta have answers, and now I've got a department head and the deputy completely gone with nobody authority for that. So I think that we stick with our numbers and let them come pull a temper tantrum later on if they want.
All right, so for the time being, go with the one that removes the SRO officer. We'll find out more on Thursday, I suppose, because if they vote to close Siam, then it won't reopen in the fall.
I would be, well, if they do vote for that, I would be eager to hear what they had already planned ahead for that position. Because I guarantee you, it's already been buttoned somewhere as the excuse.
All right, so Parks and Rec. So you got the extra that was put in here pulled out, Carolyn? And then you also got the extra revenue from the rec pulled out, correct?
Yep, I just don't know what you want me to do with the position.
Yeah.
It's still sitting there, so.
The recreational and economic developer position.
Well, you haven't, it has not been vetted through committee. There's no position description been recorded, written, or advertised.
Well, is there a point to going to that if we're not going to include it in the budget this year?
No, but I say adding to this point so it doesn't have precedence as far as making this next year budget. Because we can always go in through the unassigned fund balance or even a fund balance if they have monies left in it. Or if they get a grant in mid-year. That, I expect that to happen in this county more than anything is grants for the park recreation because of the bike trails, Tweety trails, everything else that we're doing in recreation in this county, so.
And they kicked off construction at the Hampton Watershed Trails this week.
So it seems like that's the flow of the biggest part of the money is that.
So for now, I suppose we'll pause on that.
Well, I need to know what you want me to, I mean, how do you want it put in the budget summary?
Just go in with the baseline budget,
So take out the person?
take out the person. Now, as far as the request for the reserve funds, do you want to handle that through regular budget meeting?
Reserve fund.
You can't roll their stuff over. They're not a county department. They cannot roll over.
That's not what I'm talking about.
They're talking about the money that they wanted to use is like a,
Right.
almost the 1 point some million.
Yeah, the reserve, so
Name turned in 1.7.
Oh, I didn't think we were even considering that one. That's why I didn't bring it.
That was done away with.
Okay, because I didn't even bring anything related to that.
so no softball field, no,
Well, there's no reserve to be placed in this whatsoever because there was no, that was commensurate on whether we got the grant, the initial grant or not.
not really, no. Not installing the softball field and the accessibility park.
Well, on his presentation it was.
I thought we were more inclined to think that as those projects come forward, we would be looking at them then. But I don't,
They can't go shopping.
They could if they were a department.
Correct.
If you take the position out, then they cannot be a department because there not be anyone to head up the department. But if you put in the reserve, then that goes to straight to the bottom line of the county budget. So there's no way I can come even remotely close to balancing something like that.
Well, it would be from unassigned fund balance, not taking it out of the revenues and
It would
stuff.
still hit, I mean, it would have to be, yeah, well, you all decide on that, but I don't think the auditors would find that acceptable, to take that much money out of unassigned fund balance. I don't see that flying.
So there's no way to go forward with the parks then?
There's no way one.
No way to go forward with the park?
Without the position, is that what you're saying?
Well, they've got it. We've got one that's leaving the chair, and you got a new one will be taken over. So you still got the same system we've had for the past 12 years. So we do have something.
Right, but they can't send out an RFP.
They can do anything as long as they got an employee to sign for it, a department head.
Well,
The reason why that hadn't worked is because you got two that dislike each other with a purple passion. And they'll do anything in the world to circumvent the system. They don't have to look at each other.
well,
That's why it wound up like that.
since they're not a county department, they can't send out a request for proposals for it because they don't have the money to go to back it up. So we're caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. Because without the position, it's not a county department. Technically, if they were doing something like that, it could say, if you're sending out the RFP, it would come from unassigned fund balance or whatever, just to send out the RFP. We have the genuine focus to be able to pay for it. But since it's a quasi-governmental entity, the Parks and Rec as it is now, they can't go shopping because they don't have that money on their books.
They've been getting what they need, have they not?
Yeah. I mean, as far as,
So, I mean, that end of it is, to me, obviously working, because to me, $1 million just seems so big to set aside for something like that, just to shop. So, and I understand what you're saying.
it can't happen. One or the other has to happen for anything to
If
go in.
they know that they're going to need to put out an RFP, can they not approach and
Well,
ask?
In the past, it has been either through the mayor's office, of which that position, send it down to planning to do it. So Chris has been doing the RFPs. He's been signing the POs. And that was strictly legal. So there's no reason why that can't work now until we get grants in.
Well, there's no, because they're not the county. So are you saying the mayor's office would have to send it out? Because Patty's the one that's been doing the POs here recently.
If it's
Maybe
paid,
the mayor's office that would have to sign off on it. So,
Chris has been doing it.
well, I think the past 2 or 3 months, it's gone through Patty's office because there was several that they couldn't get back. So,
Somebody has to take charge of them. That's all it is.
Can the department be created if it's a part-time position that takes out the health insurance and the pensions? And it reduces the salary amount? I know we threw that out before and it kind of got kicked back, but Audra mentioned it again. I think it's a good idea. That would create the department, which would alleviate the problem, but not put the county on the hook for a recurring cost. Because if it's a part-time, then you specify that it's, for 1 year, and then we go forward from there as to see how it works. If it works well, then may be able to get funding to make it a full-time position going forward.
what would the salary be?
We'll just,
Well, I think it has to be a full-time. I don't think it.
I don't think you can create a
Yeah,
department under a
30,000.
part-time.
you can't create a department with a part-time position?
Think
I
so.
mean, I don't know. This is one of those rules I haven't crossed paths with yet, so I don't know.
It might be a question we have to ask, but I can't see how you can.
I mean, who would,
But if it's still a director, even if it's part-time for the first year, and they're really focused on the grant writing.
Well, you're not gonna be able to get somebody that's gonna be able to do the grant writing as well, because grant writers make way more, even in part-time position than half of this. The part-time grant writer will pull in 35 or 40.
Unless you do like we did with Abby, a percentage of what they get, can that be done? A percentage of what grant they write that they actually give,
Oh,
can that be done?
probably.
You could do that, but the question is can you have a department with a part-time person? Because then you run into situations of, well, I've got in my 20 hours this week. I can't do anything else. 25 or 35, I think part-time's up to 35 hours. So,
Well, maybe this is a big opportunity for us. We've had an office holder that never misses a meeting. Is very influential, is a very good thinker and everything, that has not any collateral duties. And I think right now is the time that we should suggest that we put it on the road superintendent. Wouldn't you? I mean, these are really a real.
conflict of interest in the state.
I didn't really think about that.
So, I mean, it comes down to really, just aside from the budget side is does the county ever want those parks? I mean, I know of dozens of people that are talking about the softball park, that have called me about it, that call me every couple of weeks about it. So the softball park is a thing that people want. And the inclusion park, I mean, Daniel McInturf even spoke to it specifically, and getting something like that done in the county, because there isn't one. I mean, Harmon Park is kind of there, but not really. And the new Kiwanis Park that they just put in is kind of there, but not really. Not on the scope of what they're wanting to do. The Kiwanis Park in Johnson City is what they're wanting to do. If you've not gone over and seen it, it's amazing. And also the one next to the library too. It's not really a playground per se, but it's just a big open area that's just cool.
It may not help us here in the budget committee and in the workshop or even or the full commission. But by eliminating or not including the supervisor director position with Park and Recreation, may set the fire under the britches to go in there and just get something done. I mean, if that's their vision, and that's what the intent is, and then somebody needs to represent them.
I've done the best I can. I presented
Well,
it.
I know that.
So,
I'm saying that right now, it is under the umbrella of the mayor's office, correct? Yeah, in the first,
which part?
well, the Park and Recreation, the supervisor, that's who they would answer to.
I guess. I mean, the whole thing is it originally started as an outside agency. So, and then Carolyn's has it set to where they're not really an outside agency. They're part of the county.
They can't be at this point. They're set up as they are because that was the only other option without them being a department.
Yeah. So,
They're at the limit of what they can do without being a county department. But it sounds like it's gonna hamper the, continuation of the parks, but this is not my level of expertise on this.
well, it's kind of uncharted waters for all of us. How many of us have actually had to create a department before? So,
Do you want to leave it in there for now and get additional information? And I can always change it. I just need to know something by the 23rd.
well, in your bottom line numbers, do you have the 67 in or out?
And
In.
how are we looking from there with that
We're
end?
pretty close to break even. I haven't 100% gone back through the summary schedule and vetted. I mean, I'm literally going line by line. For every department, it's like 2,000 and some lines. So I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. I didn't get it finished today. I probably a little further than that, but I've printed off examples for you all to look at, but also these things that we're doing tonight, of course, are going to swing it significantly one way or the other. So I didn't want to print off all, whether it's going to be like 80-some pages and give it out knowing it's going to change again, which is kind of what happened with the sheriff's department. When we talked about that, I'd already printed one version, so I just went on and changed it and printed another one. So I just printed examples of the other, but we're pretty close. We're slightly negative. But I've gone through and am tweaking because a lot of this is manual because of the way we're having to do it in Excel. So I've been going through, like I said, line item by line item and looking at what we did, what I gave you all and what we talked about and what's in the summary schedule to make sure everything is matching. Some of them are off a little bit just because of rounding, a few dollars here or there. I'm not worried about that. Just to kind of see where we're at. So we're slightly negative, but we got to talk about revenue tonight. There are some items that probably add to revenue that for some reason you never budgeted for before. That would eat up the negative and that would put us about at break even probably. But of course, you know, what we do with this stuff is going to swing it one way or the other. So
So if we check on this part-time, who would that be with the comptroller or will that be with Josh Arden?
We can check with Josh.
You would know.
yeah, I'll check with Josh and I'll call CTAS and that, I mean, they're pretty good. I need to call them about something else anyway. So I can just bring that up to him and see what, he's good about looking up statutes and so forth and letting me know where to go research things.
Because
She's already figured this in. Can we hold it like it is until we figure that out and then? Because we really need to figure this part out before we figure in anything else, so we know where we need to go.
Yeah. I mean, I had to do something. So I basically took the 150,000 out and then I went through and reduced the expenses that I thought I could reduce and reduced the amounts going to park maintenance. So there was stuff in there for lighting and all that stuff. A lot of that was because of the grant that was written. Went in and took all that out and then reduced the contribution that the county would make to park maintenance to get it to where it is now. Because if we're getting all these grants, then I would think those grants would cover some of those expenses. And if you've got a person in there, then they can continue to apply for grants and continue to find other resources to hopefully fund some of that expense.
and also there's grants that you can get if you have, only if you have the department. So some grants we wouldn't even qualify for as far as recreation side goes.
Yeah, the grant that Abby applied for this was
Create
to create the department. And I mean, everybody thought we had it, so I was a little surprised that we did not get it. That's why I went on and put it in there, because everybody just kept saying, oh, we're definitely gonna get it, which.
Who ended up with it? I didn't even see who ended up with it.
I don't remember. I think she told me, but I don't remember.
So yeah, for now, leave it alone until we find out if it can go part-time, but you know, that would save what? 25, 32, save about 40,000 going to part-time. Save about 40,000 going to part-time.
You can take out the, you can take out the insurance, those come out. Plus a little reduction in taxes.
Yeah, I would like to see more surety in what this is gonna be. Because I'll be honest, what I've gotten from my folks is that they're not really up for a whole new department because they feel like it's more government overreach. But if we have more surety in how this is gonna work out and how it's gonna go as we roll down the line, I think they would be more comfortable with it, and so would I. I mean, I think the parks are great. The Park and Rec has done a wonderful job. What they've done with Roe Mountain you know, all that up there has just been amazing.
Yeah, Eric's awesome.
He is great. So, but yeah, that's just kind of how I feel. I don't know what y'all think, but.
Well, from that side, Eric's group wouldn't go away. None of those groups would go. They would still be responsible for their own thing. That way it continues to keep the overhead down.
Yeah, because Mr. Anderson's heart is wholly in that whole thing. He's great.
He wants a bridge. So for now, until we get clarification from CTES, this will have to hang out.
Okay, so just leave it as.
We'll take root and see whether you can. I don't think it will because it has to be a full-time for liability purposes.
That was what I was thinking, was the liability side.
It's gonna hurt you. I think it's needed, but there's been no provisions made for it.
But that's really what we're trying to figure out is if nobody's okay with the money, then the other effort isn't going to be worth it. I mean, you can go grab a job description anywhere and shoehorn it in, but it needs to be specifically tailored to the county, specific things that they're going to have to be responsible for in the county, which parks are going to have to oversee, what their project management duties are going to be, plus everything that we require on the ECD side. So.
I think they're trying to do good things. If we don't support them, how are they gonna have motivation to keep doing good things? Like, if they don't feel like we have their back to do them.
My folks have stuttered at that million something. That's what gets the shopping list. I mean, that's a lot of funds to set aside just for something, That's my biggest hurdle with this whole thing.
Well, everybody thinks it does, it's a softball park, costs $30,000. No, it doesn't. Because Johnson City's building 5 and it's gonna be like $14 million.
This is ridiculous.
So,
I can't imagine what it'd be worth right now.
do what?
Brick dust,
Mhm.
how much it would be, how much it would cost right now.
Or if you go and get the actual baseball mud, have them haul it in here, $200,000 a load.
We never could even afford the brick dust. I forget what it was that we ended up getting. It was something that was even cheaper
Clay.
than the brick.
That was what I always saw, was clay or grass.
All right, let's look at on the other side of the house. If we leave this in here, like it is, that means that we will, for this next budget fiscal year, that we will have already planned for 67,000 on the benefit and so forth. So that will give them enough lead time to where they can formulate job description, duties, RFP, interviews, hire a supervisor for park recreation to get it going.
Mhm.
That may be the most positive way to look at it.
Yeah, because it won't.
We're up against small calendar time right now. We're down to the nitty-gritty.
Right. Well, like the expectation is even whenever I was talking to Ken and Abby both about it, is it'll probably take 3 or 4 months to actually end up with that person. So that money that would be left over in there would just come back into the fund balance. You can do it a budget amendment whenever they come in to take out the other salary part of it and just leave the rest of it in there. So that particular cost could be recouped. But as far as getting the job description written, I've got a half a dozen different examples that you can pull from just ones that they use in Greene County and Washington County and Sullivan County and places like that and then also Elizabeth and for their Parks and Rec. So.
Well, it'll give you enough in your budget where it may turn out that you use that description on your RFP and all is greater than what 50,000 would be. That's on everything else. It may be 5,000 more, but you've got that much already committed in your budget. It's an easier on trying to fund balance fast. But if you look at the line items in that for Department Rec, you hire a person and fire parks and facilities spread all over this county. I myself would not expect a supervisor or a director to have to use personal vehicle. So that means you hire the person, you got to buy the truck, you know.
The initial objective would be, if you're, for something like that, would be to borrow vehicles from Ronnie's office and other offices while they're.
You get into job description, and maybe we just say your responsibility until this thing builds up and we get more rooms. You're to pick up the trash while you're there visiting these parks at the same time, so. You'll be the jack of all trades and the master of none. But here's your wheels, while, by the way, before you come back down to the county, clean your trash cans up, bring them down.
The sheriff's department had said in a previous meeting that they had excess vehicles, which they definitely do.
Yeah.
And that could be contributed toward that, as well as the communications officer. That was said, I don't know, in another meeting like a month ago or so, when we had this discussion.
I remember that too.
And they should have plenty.
Yeah.
They're currently working on their listing of assets at this point anyway, so.
So we can do this without actually setting aside that 1 point something million.
Yes,
Correct. We can,
I would be
the
amenable to
$1 million,
that.
the $1 million, we don't have to set aside if we do this.
Just in an outside Johnny somewhere.
This is not unreasonable here. But now I do want to ask a question, and forgive me if it comes out really dumb. Where are they going to be housed at?
Over in the planning office.
Brad, you know the mayor.
I must have missed that one somewhere in the whole discussion,
Yeah,
sorry.
they've got some empty offices over there in the planning office. They've got some empty offices over there. So, and since they're gonna, it's gonna all be out in the county anyway, being able to walk over to the planning director and say, what permits do we have to pull for this? And also, same thing for the city side, going over there and just finding out what permits we have to pull.
Recommend
So,
First thing I do is Superintendent Rhodes will have his.
because you don't have any extra electrical overhead, you don't have any extra internet overhead, because it's all the same thing. The only thing you need is a phone and a computer, and
As long as they can all play together. See how that goes.
we'll see how well that goes.
I have no idea.
Out of the gate, it'll be great.
Let's leave it like it is.
All right. Well, Carolyn, that's another thing. As far as electricity and like utilities and stuff go, they would be housed over at the planning office.
Yeah, she had initially put all that in for the grant. I took all that out except for, I think there was like $600 in there from the prior year, so I just left it.
Yeah, for the electricity. That electricity bill is for Blevins Road line. That's what that's for. That's for the Blevins Road line.
Yeah, all the additional stuff like that she had put in for the grant that I had incorporated into this budget, I took back out.
Yeah. So,
Go on the line up on 599,
Well, that is.
25,000 increase over last year and all.
the,
It says estimate for park expenses.
that's for like the donations that go to Eric Anderson Park. There's a complete schedule for it. It's like 60-some items long. That's why it wasn't included.
That's contributions. The other stuff is basically, that's part of what he had done that he put in there for park maintenance, but I don't have any details on what it is, so I just put a number in there.
Line up 599.
I can.
They initially wanted to run everything through that line item, and I said no.
No. Yeah, I told him he couldn't do that.
Well, what he submitted to me still had that and did not have any details, so I just kind of looked back at what I had put in there and I had added based on her grant, and so I just took enough money out of there to even out what it would have been without the grant.
Yeah.
Because we had added some stuff in there when we were doing the grant, so I just had to back it out.
I want to say that's for more stuff for Gap Creek Park is what that is. But there's an entire schedule that breaks down all of that.
I asked.
And I told him to send you the entire schedule just so you could see what it was, but it's like 3 sheets, it's like 2 of these of all the stuff that actually breaks down into.
What he
A
sent
whole
me
lot of nickels
was
and dimes.
historical and futuristic. It wasn't just related to this year's budget, so. I mean, I have to do a budget for 1 year. I'm not doing a 5-year plan. His was more of like a 5-year plan, which that didn't help me do a budget for this year. Because I don't know of that plan, what you're doing this year and what you're doing next year, because it wasn't broken out that way.
You know, and a lot of it, and the reason that he doesn't generally go at it from that way, it's because a lot of times you're waiting on the opportunity to arise, like the Fish Springs Park stuff. I think some of that goes for Fish Springs Park. You're dealing with that outside group, and so they move at whatever speed they're choosing to move at. And so if they come up and like, we need, $50,000, and they've told you at the beginning of the year, but it's now May or it's now March when they're asking for it. So
Yeah, so I just had to put an estimate in there based on what it looked like. It could have been or could have been historically.
Yeah. And I think that's fine, because the other charges generally is like, some of the charges from that was to purchase something. I don't know what it was this year, like the 139, it was an extra 50, or the 58,000 was what was left over from the previous year, so.
Yeah, because they were supposed to purchase it before the end of the fiscal year, but they got 2 weeks to get the rest of their purchase orders in, and
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I think they did 3 quotes on 2 different ones, and I'm not sure if they've got those done yet. So I'm not sure if the meeting is after the deadline. Is it not?
well, the deadlines, we already extended it 2 weeks longer than it
Yeah.
was last year, so we can't extend that deadline.
No. Nobody's asking you to extend the deadline. No, nobody's asking you to extend the deadline. So, for now, leave that one alone. Now the fun stuff. More.
Okay, next, this is I'm just doing a piece of it, it's kind of overwhelming. All right, so this is where we stand currently on the revenue. There were some things that, I don't know why I didn't budget for them. Audra looked at it, we thought there probably are some few that we can add back in there, but I mean, we're talking probably $20,000-$30,000 that we might be able to add back. If it goes to a reserve account, then we can't put it in here because it's not counting money technically.
One thing about this, we've gone outside agencies. Historically, we normally gave 40 grand to net rep. So we've got 60,000 setting aside. Yeah, it's been taken out, but normally that 40,000 is sitting in outside agencies, and that would go to this.
Yeah, so that's,
Do what?
What's the kids on that switch account?
so yeah.
This is the revenue.
Now, well, we'll get to that in a minute. I was gonna say something about that.
That's what this is.
No, this is revenue. So this is where we stand right now with revenue. At it, I feel like there's a few little things we can add in here that for some reason were not budgeted before. I'm not sure why. Because I guess they were immaterial, but at this point I'm looking for quarters and nickels and dimes, so. Just ignore the pension and the insurance because this is a big, huge spreadsheet. And so I had to go in and hide things in order to just get the revenue piece of it. We can't take property tax up anymore. We increased it by whatever he told me. I don't remember, 150 or 200 houses that are already in the works. So it's been increased by that. Sales tax, we increased. I'm not comfortable taking it up anymore. Looked at April and compared it to where the rest of these are. Some of them I took up a little bit. The rest of them, I did not feel comfortable doing that because of where they are for the current year based on the April revenue. Of course, I know we still have May and June to come in, but I do not want to overestimate revenue because then we're going to have a problem later.
So which were the line items that weren't budgeted for?
I should have probably gone through and highlighted them. I didn't think about them, but there were just little like onesie twosies here and there that are lines that we are currently getting revenue in for, but there was never any budget. But that was one of the things on the animal shelter is a good example for that. So for some reason on the animal shelter, they take in, I think it was like 30,000 or something in animal adoption fees, and he had budgeted like $1,500. And I'm like, what? So, I went through and looked at historically what it had been and where it is right now and kind of based it on that. So there appear to be some other line items in here, but like I said, they're not material. We're talking, 10, 15, maybe 20,000 at the very, very most to squeeze out there. But if it is something that goes to a reserve account, then you can't use it.
Okay, so property tax. Looks like it went up. The revenue from the pennies that we have for it, looks like it went up almost 400, almost 300,000.
Yeah. That's based on the number of houses that he had told me that they have in the works at this point. The only thing else that would bring property tax up, well, you know what that would be, so.
And so
Can't put that in there.
we're operating on $1 million in local option sales tax.
Yeah, we squeezed every dime out of that we can. I'm not comfortable with raising that anymore.
No, I was just seeing, because right now we're over 200,000, almost 300,000 over what we were last year. Right.
Yeah, that's one thing in all the governments, even in the national, is the sales tax. All of them are going high because we're just coming out of the pandemic. And people now that hurts.
And inflation too, because the cost of something goes up, you get more tax revenue out of it on the other side.
Yeah, well, we budgeted 1.2 and I've got budgeted 1.8. So I've taken into consideration the overages and the way it looked in April and kind of factored that into what I thought May and June might be. Don't really know because I don't really know yet. So, and you can't use historicals because you can't use COVID timeframe because that's that isn't relevant, and you can't use before that either. So
If you want to get a good picture, I would probably look at 2009.
well, but 2000, we've taken in a lot more, and sales tax has changed since then. So sales tax from 2009 would drop what I've done. This was also based on estimations from the state of where they were kind of throwing out to counties to kind of give them a ballpark of what to do. So that's the other basis for this. The state had kind of put some guidelines out there as this might be something you might want to consider. So that's what we went with.
You had the electrical permits highlighted in purple.
Well, there are some things I just don't really know what that is, and there's no money come in for it yet. So I don't know if that's like an annual thing. So anything like that, I just left it the way it was because it looks like I just put my historicals over the last couple of years. So I'm like, well, maybe that's something that comes in at the end of the fiscal year.
I think it comes into the trustee's office, doesn't it, Brad? Electrical permits, because those go through Schutler's office.
Schuler's, I think, he takes it to the trustee.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Explain what when you say, are they annual?
They come in once a year because there's nothing, I think this was the one.
I don't know if they've got it on a quarterly or if they got it, I believe it's on an annual.
See, nothing's been collected up to
Because-
February, March. And I think I looked in April and there wasn't anything in April either, so.
I think the way that worked before was we gave,
Show that on their meetings.
yeah, I think the way it worked is we had to give them $60,000 as part of their operating cost, and then that all came back in through electrical permits from the state. That's who they come in from, is the state, not from Schutler's office. he turns it into the state because we have our own electrical inspector. So they give us part of the fee back,
So it's probably something that comes in on an annual basis.
something on an annual basis, yeah.
Yeah, well, without being able to see what that was, just based on what it trended last year, and that may be a little high, but I don't know.
People are still building like crazy, adding on. People are still building and adding on, even though the prices are ridiculously high, they're
Yeah.
still moving forward with it.
I think I think their thought process is it's never any cheaper than it is right now. So I don't think anybody sees it coming back down.
You will notice in this that the lease slash rental income from workforce development is gone. Now, if the state does not take it by July 1st, then that rental will continue until the state takes it. But at this point, all assumptions are the state will take it by July 1st. So that's why that revenue's completely gone. So if it does still continue to come in, it's there. We did go back and adjust, I probably should print that one off, but it's not that material. So county buildings, we did go back and adjust that one for some mowing expenses for the first couple of months, just in case.
Yeah.
Because we would have to cover that until they were set up to do that.
Yeah.
So that's in there, but it's immaterial. So that was added back to the county buildings budget.
Yeah, guys, was it 12 or 20,000 we had to pay for mowing up there annually?
I
I was thinking 12.
think it was 12, but she just put a minimal amount in there for like a couple of months. She had the invoice and knew what it was, so we just stuck that in there. And thought at that point, we'll just dress it accordingly, however it works out. Because at this point, nobody really knows. But I was not comfortable leaving the revenue.
Excuse me.
Anybody sees anything they think I missed?
Not so far.
What is food handling permits? Is that like access trucks or what? The food handling permits, what are those?
I guess for the sheriff's department, because they're the only ones that do food other than food service for the schools, which of course that's a whole different
Oh, okay.
whole
I thought
different thing.
I was thinking like outdoor trucks, like living in the trucks over here. Sample food trucks. Oh,
Yeah, I don't know. They had it in they had actual.
Yeah, they have actual.
Yeah, so I stuck it in, yeah. Some stuff like that I went ahead and put in that had actuals this year, but they weren't in there last year. But there are a few more that I maybe could put in if I had to. I'm kind of hesitant, really, I'm a little hesitant to add anything else to the revenue. Because I don't know what happens if we miss the budget. I've not gotten an answer. I've asked that question.
Missed the projections, you mean?
Yeah, what happens if you miss it? Nobody seems to be able to give me an answer to
You go
that.
to jail.
Well, that's what I know.
Budget line items all the budget line items would be short that percentage, and it would have to come out of the unassigned fund balance later on in the year's work. That's where it would have to come from.
Well, we don't want to do that either, so.
Under figure and then be pleasantly surprised if there's something.
Yeah, that's,
You know, that's
you know,
always
that's
been
kind of my
thought.
thought too. I would much rather come in under, and I don't want to over project, especially when it comes to something like this. We've been super conservative on the expense side, so felt like we needed to be super conservative on the revenue side. So I would prefer not to adjust anything, but if you all see stuff that needs to be adjusted or you want adjusted, it's up to you all.
So you're going to.
Don't do what you want to, boy, I'm a deal.
I like that advice. What do you think, Bruce?
I wanted to do the math on something.
I'm looking at anything,
And the bottom line is up 3.3%.
I think it's.
So I think it's,
This year only, just a little notch above comfortable or conservative, because what we're coming out of, people's letting loose, may not last a year, but it'll last enough, I think, to keep our heads above water.
Well, that was something to take into consideration on sales tax, because you're coming off an era where people got all these stimulus checks and they got additional money because of changes with tax rates and so forth. Well, now we're going into inflation, so that's gonna, either they can get more sales tax because things cost more, but people are having to buckle down because they don't have the disposable income. So
They're spending it in other things that end up getting taxed most of the time though. So like they're not spending it on iPhones, they're spending it on food, they're spending it on,
That's
clothing.
speaking of,
necessities.
I don't know if I just saw this wrong. Is Governor Lee doing August where there's no food tax?
I don't know.
I saw something about that, and I don't know if it was just a funny, they said
no,
that.
they're waiving it for at least a month, maybe 45 days.
Okay. I'm glad
Sales
that
tax
I
on
didn't have
food.
time to go back, and then it went away, and I didn't
Yeah, I
have time
hate
to go
that.
hunt.
As well as
Okay.
the state part of your audit, right? We're doing two things, the food tax and not charging the state portion of your car registration.
Cool, mine comes up in August.
Really?
Is it that, or is it your registration fee, or is it
That's the registration.
Your plate.
Free plates.
plate fee?
I call it, okay.
Because I was thinking,
No, because I'm just so upset.
Because you just bought one.
No, they would never do that because, I mean, it's really a nominal incentive coming out of the state.
$26.
It's
Yeah, for your registration fee, so it's like $5 or something.
From Round Mountain to Elizabeth, and just say 50 cents on.
For personal plates, it's $26 a shot, so if you're gonna give that.
You would like that.
So Carolyn, which number were you?
Well, I'd said that, but I kind of would just like to leave it like it is.
No, you were saying something the other day about a number that was surprising to you.
What do you mean? I've slept since then. I don't remember.
I was just curious if,
Any numbers?
it was the fund balance roll. Is that still,
Oh, I'm not saying a word on
Uncomfortable?
that. I'm not saying a word on that until all the purchase orders are in.
okay,
Because it looks a lot more than what I thought it would be, but I'm thinking there will probably be that's gonna disappear.
well, one of the things I'd like to see us do is to give you guys a better deadline for next year's after we come out of the budget cycle, go ahead and set the PO deadline date for the next year, for the upcoming budget cycle. Go ahead and set the PO deadline date. That way, everybody knows exactly what it's gonna be next May. We go ahead and set that, and that way you'll still have a rush, but hopefully everybody will know enough in advance to spread the rush out if possible.
Yeah, well, it had been middle of May previously. We backed it to the third, almost toward the end of May to give people some extra time to get some things in, because to me, it was obvious that there was a bunch of stuff not there. And there were so many people that were flipping out going, I can't do that. I can't figure that out. And so just to kind of hopefully get rid of a little bit of that chaos, then
I don't think it'll change the behavior of the rush on May 27th.
But then you can look at them and say, you've had a year to prepare for this.
Or April 30th, it's gonna be the same, and you're actually likely to even more distort the real number because people put in POs that are way higher than they actually spend. Then you've encumbered all that money and you still don't know where you are. And it doesn't really work over in schools because summer camps, they just got their money for summer camp allocation. So now they need to buy all of their stuff between right now and June 1st. So if we closed it on May 15th or today, last week, whatever it was, they're still coming in anyway. You almost kind of defeat yourself by making it too early because people just throw a PO in there and burn up their budget, and it doesn't really matter.
it just creates a
Human
bigger mess.
behavior. So unless you incentivize them somehow not to do it by saying, well, you could roll in a portion of your unspent money, or it'll go to raises for sure,
I feel the ice age coming on.
you're not gonna do that.
I think during the day, Patty's gaining some monies by hanging hogs in here, so.
But sir, I can feel it. I can feel my ward on my finger, man.
I don't think your revenue projections are far off, just based historically on what we've done and how it's been going up.
So are you okay to leave it as is?
I think so.
I think it is, and if it's a big error, we'll just blame her and we'll just make at least 50 laps around the monument one daytime.
So I can wear tennis shoes. Well, I can do it, it just might take me a minute.
Here's the limits.
Okay, I can do it, it just might take me a minute.
It don't matter, we ain't gonna say how long it's take, it's just that you got a penalty.
All right, so leave revenue as is.
Yeah, because it looks like 2019, it was the local option sales tax portion of it was 1.3, then it jumped to 1.7. And we've got 2 months to go. And if we stay on track for what we have,
Well, if we get May in and it looks significant, well, no, we won't have it by,
nope, you won't have it in time.
we
You
won't
won't
have
have it in time. So don't worry about it. Don't stress out about it, because all we'll do, we've got 10 months. We've got 10 months of history. Let's just take that 10 months, average it out, guess on the last 2 months and send it.
Yeah, that's kind of what we did. So,
That was what I was kind of looking at here. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. We're averaging about 107,000 in sales tax every month, because it looks like there's 1.2 million or 1.3 million there for so far this year.
I was thinking it was a little bit.
It's a little more than that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
It's 9 months, 1.3 million is 9 months.
1.3 million is 9 months. Okay. Okay, so. So about 145.
Yeah.
And we'll say 144 to round down. So we're coming in at that. We've got 3 months left. It's 345,000 for 304 that.
Times 3, yeah, so it'd be about
435.
440.
435. And so would that be a net drop from what we had in 2021 at 1.7? Or would that be?
It's about 50,000 more,
Yeah.
Okay.
So it should be a little bit more.
so we're stretching that a tad, but.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've stretched it as far as we can stretch it.
I don't think your estimates are far off. I really don't.
Can do.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, with things the way they are right now, you can't really look at historicals, you can't look at what's even happened the last several months because of inflation and where it is now, and it's even hard to guess at this point, to be honest with you, so.
Now, the next suggestion is, let's go ahead and take Kenworth bed on the sidewalk and feel the sunshine while it's still up.
Yes, sir. I think I agree with that because we've been in there an hour and a half.
I call down here to the funeral home and ask, they got some extra coats down there. We can sew up the back.
And then have that Marcus at the door.
Warner has an extra body bag.
Junior will have something. He always does.
That's why we went and had to.
Yours, all I can say.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go and get my sweater.
I had flip flops on and a t-shirt.
Oh, because they Okay, so one of these, do not shoot the messenger. I'm gonna lay it down and run quickly.
Lay it down and run quickly.
Good start.
One of these is not my document. You will be able to tell by looking at it which one is my document and which one is not. So, one is a previous document that you had before that lays out what it would be if chose to give raises to county employees. This was based on, that's this one, that was based on suggestions from different people. And what it would cost to do that. So we are at a point where I kind of need to know what we're gonna do, just as I put the summary schedules together. What you're leaning toward, not leaning toward, what you wanna do, don't do. The other one, which is why I said I'm gonna duck and run, was sent over by the school department requesting that the county give them additional funding for raises for their employees. They are gonna do the 1.5%. They're asking the county for one of these other options. And that's the cost of it.
What would you have done? Oh, so you're.
I said I was gonna put that one on the desk and run quickly.
Run, that's something to just get.
Well, you know,
Least one.
So we were requested to pass that information out. Were we, or were we just doing it?
Were we, or we're just doing it?
What do you mean?
Requested to pass it out.
Well, they sent and asked us to,
Let's take the,
I mean, unless I did I misunderstand?
Rates and get that taken care of before we look at the last one.
I thought they were gonna decide what.
That's,
Audra said that she thought they were gonna decide what they were gonna ask for. This came from Richard Church, so I thought this was what they wanted.
well, they're facing a defection on their teachers because they never did get any money. They never, you can verify this. Did they get ARP money?
no.
That was,
Yeah, they got it, it's not classified as ARP.
It's ESSER.
Yes, sir. They got money for,
the
they
only
could,
thing that I've been able to understand is about was the equity.
They got a small bonus, it was a small bonus.
How much?
I think it was 500, wasn't it?
250 and 500.
here's the other
Out of
thing
ESSER money.
you gotta consider. We provide a little bit over $2 million per year of maintenance of effort.
It's almost 3 now.
It's almost
Oh,
three.
well, no, that's not my thing at all, because in my opinion, this needs to be dealt with. They wanna build a $29 million school. So,
I think their intention was just to maybe discuss this on Thursday night, but as we heard last night, that's not an option. So they have to come to the commission meeting, not the commissioners go to their meeting, from my understanding. So anyway, that's just for informational purposes. What we need to focus on tonight is whether you want to do anything with the other document, and if so, which option, because I need to go back in and roll that back into the schedule.
so, okay. Where are we gonna be on the 2,500 or the 3? I mean, are we going to be able to,
Not just gonna look at it. Thank you.
okay, are we gonna be able to do the 2,500 or the 3?
It's gotta come out of fund balance, whatever we do.
If we go that route, it'd be better to give it out as a bonus rather than a recurring cost. Because I don't think we can do it as a recurring cost if it's gonna hit unassigned fund balance, right?
Well, because what you take out of unassigned fund balance is just to balance your budget. It's not for any specific purpose. This was just left to the last thing. So that doesn't necessarily, I mean, it just, anything that we are short, based on what I have seen, I've got to have a little more discussion with our auditors about it, but it doesn't look like where he took pennies out of, and I know I'm probably not stating that correctly, because that still seems a weird concept to me because that's not something I'm accustomed to. It doesn't appear we can do that this year because too much was taken out last year. So the only other option, because he took out some from that and then took out additional from fund balance. So this year, I mean, we've got it about as close as I can get it. without going through and cutting departments a percentage or something like that. So that means that any differential, that's the only option. That's the only place to take it from.
Did they give us the quantities on any of these?
What do you mean?
Like the number of employees?
For that one, no. That came from the school department.
Yeah, I know we've got yours. I'm
I was gonna say,
sorry.
we have.
I should clarify.
That came from the school department. All I did was print it off and provide it. But evidently I might be premature in doing that.
I mean, they're gonna decide what they're gonna have the stomach to come and ask you for, so it's probably not a bad thing that you have a little bit of a heads up.
That way we're not being blindsided by it.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of my thought.
Shock factor already.
Well, plus, oh, sorry, go ahead.
This is a awful long, but I'm thinking, we ought to have a recess just right now for they're requesting that I can teach the 24 in here on a certain signal when they say, we would like to have a raise, everybody just stand up and laugh and pat each other on the back. And we'll see how they would feel for that.
They have 831 employees in schools, 74 in food service.
74, that's in addition to the 831,
Yes,
74 in food service.
and a total of 905.
Okay, I thought they had like 1,100, so.
Both combined is 11.
Are we discussing this one or are we discussing the one that Carolyn gave us?
The one I gave out from the school was just kind of food
Or information, okay. So,
but it also kind of gives you a little bit of perspective based on what we would potentially do for county employees as opposed to what they're looking at. And one thing to note on here, which is probably shouldn't, but I'm gonna note it anyway, is they're mentioning on here their lowest salary level as compared to, I didn't put that on here on the county, but it's very significant difference between what the lowest salary level is for the county and what it is for the school system.
No, it's on here. It's a base salaries, estimates, lowest salary, 40,500.
Yeah, but I didn't put it on here for the county.
Okay.
And it's significantly.
Well, they didn't include the paraprofessionals either.
Yeah, that's that's basically your teacher.
And school nurses.
So, but this kind of gave the scenario of what it would be for, flat increases for county employees if that was something that was chosen to do. Just to kind of give you some options of what to look at if that was chosen. Also, by doing it as a flat amount, you are affecting the salaries of your lower paid employees more than your higher paid employees, which seemed to be what the commission was looking to do when we had this discussion back in January, February-ish. So that's why those options are the ones that are on here. Plus, the people that have approached me about it, commissioners and department heads that have approached me, this is what they also had suggested. So that's where this came from, which is also where these ranges came from. These were suggestions that I received from individuals, meaning commissioners or department heads, as to what they would like to see. Some on the high end, some on the low end. So I just kind of spread it.
Is there enough revenue coming in to pay for any of these raises? No.
Not with the increases, because we had to put in 13% increase for insurance. And we put in inflation factors, some of which were like 15 and 20% for fuel and utilities and things like that. So any of the extra money that we had that would have gone toward this was eaten up by that. If we didn't have that, then we would have had more money to go toward this. And maybe could have even, done recommendations toward the higher end, but because of inflation and the way things are right now, those estimates ate up all those extra dollars. I will say department heads did a good job of trying to hold their expenses tight. in hopes that something would be able to be done with this. That was pretty much the discussion across the board. And the work with people that were doing their budgets is they were hoping that we would at least be able to do something with this. So they were willing to squeeze pretty tight on their budgets. Plus, I kind of might have suggested that. That they squeeze tight on them. Not that they do this, but that they squeeze tight on them, just because I knew we couldn't go up on revenue because there's no other revenue source to go up with, so.
Is there any of the commissioners even offered or anything about taking money out of the fund balance, even though it's reoccurring for a raise?
I mean, I don't think so. I don't think everybody was just kind of waiting to see where we were.
Well, let me ask the question. Why do that when you have federal funds here that you don't have to worry about it?
You got the federal funds to put it in?
Well, look, Roger, you got ARP money.
That's going elsewhere,
Oh, no, we're the ones that decides where the money to go.
of course.
Okay, so we're gonna take care of the
A
employees.
lot of people want that money.
I know, but I'm saying, my priority is just like everybody else. When I look at the list that is remaining, that has been reviewed by the Health and Welfare Department for recommendation, I see things in there that myself personally, I don't think qualify for it. For it says the whole purpose of ARP is infrastructure.
That's true.
Okay, so I see things in there that's not infrastructure for our county government. My employees are, so here I have federal funds that I'm gonna make sure, just that, I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say we give flat amount, 2,500 and 12,050 for part-time. Okay?
Okay.
Now, we say, all right, employees, we're gonna give you 5,000 bonus. Two things that happens. One, you pay less taxes on that than you do if you got a salary increase. All right? Second thing it does to you is that you, in that amount, you get both a raise and your income. That's what we're after. We put more money in our employees' pocket. No matter how I get it in there, we've got it in there. So you've got a bonus. Our average around us in our county are paying $3,000 bonuses.
Unicor's hoping to pay 3,000 if they're done paid, and they're hoping that when they get the rest of the money, they're hoping to pay 3 more thousand.
If they
I
get,
talked to them, so it'd
if
be
they get
6,000.
more of it. But Washington County was 3,000.
Now this, I kind of like your ideal there, but APR money is not supposed to be used on reoccurring.
This ain't recurring, it's a bonus.
But next year, you're gonna have to,
Well, that's right. That gives us a whole year to save money for it.
next year, you gotta fund it, next year.
We don't have to because this is a bonus. There's no requirement past this.
I thought you were talking about giving them a raise out of that.
That 5,000 that we give every employee, half of it is your raise for the year. Half of it is a bonus.
So you're gonna give over a dollar an hour raise. Correct? Because it's $2,500. A dollar an hour raise is $2,080 is a dollar an hour raise, which is great. Right? Because it's 2,080 hours.
It don't change your salary.
It'll just be, it'll be
Okay.
one time,
It has
they
to
get all
be.
at one time.
You can't call it, I don't think you can call it a raise. and-
No,
No,
but
it's,
just to identify what it's going to include.
Yeah.
If we say we're going to give each employee $5,000, we know that 2,500 of that, half of it is going to be the same as what their raise would be if we had the money.
Correct.
Okay, so that leaves you 2,500 more that is above and beyond. Nobody know, it can be done for anything you want to. And say, no raise, huh?
$5,000 should be given as a bonus unless you're going to give a heck of a raise. And I can't see that, giving a heck of a raise to any employees right now, the way the budget is. See, so, yeah, $5,000 bonus, like you're saying.
But that will be your raise also.
I agree with that. I agree with that from the whole, because some of my employees say, I gotta have a raise. I said, no, you wouldn't, because they're not going to give you a raise to match that, because if you get a 2 or 4% raise, it'll take you 6, 7 years to recover that 5,000. Right, am I right on that?
Yep.
or more.
If you average that 5,000 out over, what, 52
I think
weeks?
in this case, the 5,000
You
is
know,
better,
if
even
you're
if you don't.
thinking of it in terms of a weekly change, that's
That's what I'm
$96.
I agree, that's what I'm saying.
But see, in
Let's give a
our,
raise
Give it
to,
all the time.
our budget in the county, we're on the, as I say, we're on the fence. We can fall off either way. But because we had to use them the other prior years,
if you can't,
and
you
then,
can't give a raise without raising the property taxes,
Yeah.
the 5,000 bonus.
but right now, we can't, there's no way we can do it without a property tax.
That's the reason I asked that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
If you can't do it,
If you look at the 2,500, you're looking at almost 8 cents on the property tax rate.
I mentioned the other night, if we could squeeze another out of that recovery money to better take home pay, that's what someone's asked me. That's the reason I asked it the other night. You know, but I know you got to stop it a limit.
Well, tell them if they're out of breath and they can't take it in the bank, give me their account numbers, dang lazy, and I'll deposit it for them. Somebody. Now, and the other reason is, behind that, in the past 18 months, previous 18 months, how much do you think your average employee received above their salary?
Quite a bit, because you guys is good enough to give bonuses and stuff.
Well, you had 2 stimulus checks,
They-
you had 2 bonuses, you had 2 pay raises above and beyond what our salaries were.
I've only been here,
Yeah.
the time I've been here, the last 2 or 3 years, the commission has really helped the employees out a lot more than it did before. And the $5,000 bonus would be a great cap off.
That's,
I've been here, we've always given a raise, but prior to me coming, which I'm just one of 24.
I've also
There
told,
was no raises for 8 years. None, for 8 years.
I remember under Lamar Alexander, for 8 years, he started today.
That's what you done done.
Another thing I've told them too, even if it's a bonus, and they have to take out 20% income tax, most of them, probably under 10% income tax, they're going to get it back at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah, they'll make on that.
Get a better
Because
bonus,
bonuses
they
tax
get
you
their own income tax.
But I think I handle it by bonus and use the federal funds rather than take out of our local.
It's a great deal for them if the commission votes on
It's
it.
just the upfront is more.
one of the things,
I agree with you, 100%.
Yeah.
one of the things that I think we're kind of seeing at this point is we are up against the absolute limit of where we are property tax wise. We can't really squeeze anything else out.
Squeezed it to the bone.
So, I mean,
It's counterproductive to raise your property tax and give a raise. I mean, you're just getting it back that way. It's,
exactly. And well, and on the flip side of that, 56% of the county or more at this point is classified as an ALICE person. They're actively working, but they're literally paycheck to paycheck. And so by increasing property taxes in that way doesn't hit the way that you expect it to hit, because it's going to take revenue away from your sales tax and other things like that. And it's people on fixed incomes, because I mean, 50% of the county is retirement age, 62 or older, 62 or older. So you've got 50% of your population that are on or about to be on a fixed income. So if you start digging into property tax raises, you've got to make it significant. Number one, to cut the bandage, pull the Band-Aid off. But like I said, property tax increase is not one thing that I would ever advocate for or vote for. So,
Aaron, in the past 2 years, they get 4% raise, is that right? 2 years in a row, am I wrong?
I don't think it was 4% both years.
I think it was
Last
4,
year
and then
was.
it was 0, and then it was 4 because it was like 2 for
Yeah,
a year, and they kind of made it up this year.
yeah. So yeah, it was 3, then 0, then 4.
And you had 15 for your bonus at each end of those that are, so that coupled with the 4%.
And then almost every year we give a bonus near Christmas time of, $500, $600, $700.
Good, I think for the employees, inflation's going up. A raise would be great, but if you don't have the money for a raise, you don't want to get the county or the highway department in a situation where you have to lay off employees or whatever, because your budget's low. You got to watch that. You're doing a great job, really.
And people talk about how low, property taxes are in other places and different things like that around us, Washington County, Sullivan County, Unicoi, Irwin, places like that. It's really not. The vast majority of those have wheel taxes on top of it, which, wheel taxes are painful because with a simple majority vote, you can, in the middle of a commission meeting, you can choose to raise taxes, to raise revenue for whatever it is you want to raise revenue for. And then everybody has to pay it the following year. So
I would be broke.
do what?
I said I would be broke. Our yard looks like Walmart parking lot.
So,
Starting in July, we don't have to pay for tags for a vehicle now. Is that right?
Right.
Governor's not doing it.
Yeah, we're bringing this.
That's a little help.
But I think if that would go along is to sell that to.
it's a $5,000 bonus. It's a huge chunk.
And that, I'm not gonna say force, but that'll open up the eyes to health and welfare, that the ones that's tagging on the bottom, that doesn't fully qualify for the infrastructure of your government, that they be eliminated.
I agree with Mr. Johnson and Roger both, because look at the recovery that you're gonna have to make during that time to make that back. You're getting a super deal out of that.
Well, yeah, and some of the public, when I asked just to make sure that in my thought line of the previous 18 months for the individual employee, when we figured it up, it was for a employee and a spouse. It came out to last year in the past 18 months was $10,170 was how much they made above their salary in benefits in Alva County. For pay bonuses, pay bonuses, and then you had the stimulus on top of that. So they effectively,
Is that a couple of years?
Uh,
What period?
in 18 months.
18. That's good. That's good.
Oh, yeah, it is. But with an employee and a spouse and 2 children, it was $14,700. So you got so much per child in addition to the stimulus. So that was above and beyond. And I thought, golly, boom.
One thing to look about the inflation that we're experiencing right now is that was the stimulus checks. People are just having to pay it back now in a different way because there's no such thing as a free lunch. The money had to come from somewhere, so they had to print the money. Printed the money, threw it into the banks, then wrote the checks off of an amount number. So what they got back then, they're paying for now. So
That is too, just on the highlight on our economy, things is changing a little bit. I'll give you an example. This is May the 17th, April the 18th, just in the futures on NASDAQ for investment wise lumber. It was at $1,471 per 1,000 board feet. Now, 30 days further, it's at $747. So it has come down 50%. And it's held at, and they say it's going to decline a little bit more. Normally, in our lifespan, we see if when interest rates goes up, building materials go down on the majority. And vice versa. If the material goes up, interest go down. And they've played it every year, as long as I've been home.
April inflation rate was 8.3%.
On them lines, we've been, and I know that,
Well, I think by using that, you're using our LP, if we all can agree on that and get the commission to agree on it, that take care of the inflation rates and everything.
Yeah, because the best, we were only looking at being able to, the most was $2,500. And that was gonna be doled out, weekly, right? I mean, like as an add-on to the salary, so they would be getting double. I mean, I just think about the officers, the road officers that stood here that night and said, we'll step aside, you do the.
Well, a bunch of bleeding hearts.
Oh,
But says, oh, I got shot at. Well, whoop-de-dang-do.
But no, they stood aside so
Put
that
your
we
badge
could
on for it.
get, even though now we're seeing that that really didn't help,
Didn't do anything.
didn't change anything. We still lost more employees.
Yes, I think they lost another one.
Well, Washington County went on that big spree, you know, their new sheriff advertised on TV and everything else for correctional officers and offering a big bonus. They got 6 to apply, 6 to pass, and 5 left 3 days later.
Yeah.
They've only had 1 sustained. And it's just, and it's across the whole nation. It's just ain't Carter County. And money ain't gonna solve.
No, this is not, it's not a problem that you can throw money at and solve it. I mean, it helps out the ones that do stay and want to do the right thing.
Sheriff, what do you think? Do you think we ought to adopt that and go this year?
Let's ignore the school part for the time being. But as far as that goes, because I know there's a lot of people that have heartburn with it being a $5,000 bonus coming out of the ARP funds. But this right here would make that a lot more tenable, I think, to a lot of people looking at, you know, it's like, we're not going to give a raise, but we're going to go with the recommendation out of the tentative recommendation out of health and welfare for 5,000.
Remember, this goes to the floor. This don't go to the health and welfare. Once this budget is adopted with this rate increase, this is telling that is going to happen.
Right. No, I'm saying go away from this and do it from the ARP funds that way. Because some people had some heartburn about it being $5,000.
666, not 5. 666, not 5. I tried it
I don't know, they started out at 12 and got her down to 5. I mean, 5 seems like a reasonable total.
Let's see, I can't remember what, how much was
Way better than the 25,000 that somebody had touted at one point.
That's what
Let's
the
see,
law said.
6,000.
Up to 25,000.
Six and about
Most of our employees wouldn't even qualify for 25,000.
Right now.
Mine was-
278,
Not-
278 times 6.
But the ones that, some of them quit, but the ones that still are doing that, they've got one, because they worked $13 an hour. They worked 300 hours.
Well,
I got it.
we could technically we could do that, but we're going to be taking out about an $8 million bond for a radio system. So,
Yeah, do what you can.
yeah, 8 million's tentative at this point.
Mr. Campbell, how are the employees going to feel? Are they gonna feel like they're slighted by not getting an hourly raise by getting this?
I think this works out.
You are getting one, it just has to be.
They are, but that's what I wanna know is, are they gonna understand how they're
We're
getting?
gonna gain more this way than you are, and bill more than you are in the next 7 years. Like Rob said. If you you gotta get them to understand this.
Well, the thing about it is sure, we can go this route, but on top of that, we're gonna have to put through this many cents sales tax increase. And then that's gonna have to pass commission, which it's not going to do.
It doesn't hit fund balance.
So looking at it from that perspective, this is what we're doing. We're hoping that sales tax revenues continue to increase to where we can do something like this a year from now.
Plus the fact.
Because we've belabored this point for at least the past 6 months. I mean,
So what that
One
means
thing
is
that helped out
whatever somebody's salary is, it's gonna be divided by
Landfill budget,
27,
everything.
26. So
That
they're
gas
gonna
and
feel like
diesel
they're
go
taking
back
less home or
That's
paying
gonna kill all
Because
of us.
we-
And
food.
Yeah, food, but I mean,
daily instead of a
county
month.
budget, it would go away that back down if that gasoline get down to $2 a gallon again.
yeah, well, around 15, take out about 15% budget wise,
I don't know if it's gonna pass.
or at least in those line items.
To talk that up. Because I know some are in favor of it and some are not.
In favor of, sorry, I was having a sidebar conversation and I apologize.
5,000, plus I told her something this is just all food for thought. This is up to you all, not up to me. This coming fiscal year, we will have, which happens about every 5 years or so, we will have 27 pay periods instead of 26 because we're bi-weekly, not bi-monthly. So we'll have one in June, in December, and in July. That doesn't happen very often. But from the employee standpoint part, which is gonna be hard to explain for somebody that is not accustomed to looking at this, they are going to get less per pay period, but they're gonna have 3
More pay
months of 3 pay periods instead of the normal 2. So that will be something that will have to be explained, because on the outside, what it's gonna look like is they're just gonna look at what hit their bank account and go, what the heck happened here? Why did I get less money?
Is that becoming?
Is there a different way?
No, it's because it's just one of those random things, because we're bi-weekly instead of bi-monthly, that instead of it being 26 pay periods, it'll be 27. Happens to be every 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Is there a different way that we can handle that this year?
24.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
still
I
think
know
you
what
still
you mean.
get 24.
Yeah, I see what you.
Is there a different way we can handle that this year?
What do you mean?
Gotta be careful, because we're in trouble on the audit because the 2 got overpaid and the elected officials.
Can we, just like we did with the sheriff's department?
See, this is what
on
I'm
a
thinking.
quarterly thing?
Well,
Kind of, I mean, like.
rather than giving it a $5,000 lump sum,
But then give it on a quarterly. Can we do that?
we could give it on a weekly basis if we wanted to, couldn't we?
At the 5,000.
Yeah.
Is that
Employees,
possible?
all the employees I've talked to wants it bad, one lump sum.
Okay.
No,
Well,
I didn't know if we could do it like we did the sign-on retention bonuses.
what is,
I know that's more work.
But, well, I mean, it's not just that, it's just then how do you gotta have a policy about what happens if they leave, what happens.
Oh,
here's,
yeah, that would be complicated.
It can get complicated, and if you do, say the ARP funds and you do the 5,000, okay, we've kind of set the parameters of that. So keep in mind too, that some of your current employees within this 278 are not gonna qualify for that 5,000. So, and then if they come and go, you know, that's all gotta be taken into consideration, but there are gonna be some employees that will not qualify for the 5,000. I do not know how many, I haven't figured all that up yet.
once we get that figured in, we'll.
See, that's gonna open up a whole nother can of worms if you don't give.
You said we had 270.
Won't that open up a whole nother can of worms if somebody's not getting something?
Well, follow with me here. We've got that extra, how much, if you had to pay out the entire payroll for 1 week from the county, what would it run for that 1 week?
This is
I
just,
don't know right off the top of my head, to be honest with you, for everybody. But now I will say that was something, when I worked for the not-for-profit, that's what happened. Everybody missed it, like the payroll company missed it, everybody missed it. And so the board made a decision to pay that amount out.
And see, that's kind of where I was coming from for that.
So I thought about throwing that option out there, but I didn't really know what to do with it, so, but that's what they did. But they didn't plan for it, like nobody planned for it, nobody budgeted. And this what we pay you all to do, because we used an outside source to do this. So, I mean, that is an option, because I went to the board and said, hey, this is what happened, and they chose to fund 1 pay period, which I don't, isn't it like 50,000 or something like that? I can't remember off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
And see, that's,
1 pay period for what? Isn't it about 50 grand for the county?
okay, so we
50
know,
50 to 60, say something.
we know that's coming. So instead of having everybody's paychecks look a whole lot smaller and everybody being upset, that may be something we need to address at the meeting on the 23rd is get us some hard numbers on that, and we'll have a discussion regarding the paying out that extra salary week or 2-week salary, whatever it is, for the upcoming fiscal year. It's not really a pay raise, we're just choosing to pay it. See what I'm saying?
then the following year, they'll take a pay cut.
That would,
That's the way our system is.
do,
It's not so much they're gonna bring in less money after the 12 months, it's what they perceive in their.
It's what the
deposit.
paycheck.
it's what the paycheck's gonna look like.
Yeah, they get the same amount, but
People that work hourly don't.
It only affects the ones that are individually salaried, correct? Or-
So
Well, no, it'll affect
it affects
everyone.
everybody. It's just,
Pay for, get paid
Not
for
as-
a week, or every week.
it's not as evident, I guess, from the part-time side as it is from the full-time side.
Is that,
I mean, I can look, tell
The
you how
only way
much
to
it's
really
gonna be.
solve it.
Is it gonna look like your pay rate has
to
gone
go-
down because? Explain that to me.
I mean,
That's where Brad.
realistically,
Well, no,
They're not gonna understand that.
People never understand that.
Tell them shut
I
up.
can tell you from perspective of someone who's done payroll before.
the thing, what I'm getting at is people aren't gonna understand why their paychecks are less. They're working the same number of hours and their payroll says the same, but why is my paycheck less? So that's gonna be the perception. If we only have to take, you know, a 60 or 70 grand hit once every 5 years, I don't see where that could be a.
What they did at the nonprofit is that's what they did. They paid that extra one, but then the following year, that was taken into consideration as they looked at raises. So they may not get a raise, or if they did, they got a much smaller one because it compensated for what? Because if you put it in as a bonus, then they're not going to see the difference in their paycheck. You would have to go in and increase the salary by that, which means it's a recurring cost. Unless you look at that, I mean, that would basically be a raise
Well,
to make that happen.
what I'm saying is just that one pay period, whichever the third one, whichever one comes up as the third one, we just pay that salary. We just send it out of the unassigned fund balance up to those line items to make sure that there's enough in there.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Pay them the regular rate that they're always accustomed to getting.
That's still an increase in their pay. That's the only way to do it.
Still an increase in their income at the end of the
Yeah, that's the only way to do it in our current
So
system.
you can't take it back the next year.
Yeah, so it's still a
I mean,
re.
I started working for this county in 2000 or 2001, and
No, it's just.
we always understood that we got paid every other Friday, and, you know, some years you're going to get 27 instead of 26 checks, and your checks are going to be a little bit smaller because you're going to get an extra one for the year. I don't know why it would be so hard for people to understand now when it's always been a thing. I mean, I worked here when we went through the whole, you didn't get your check for an extra day every pay period because we worked through a holding back period. So, I mean, I've saw people understand a lot.
Okay. All right, well,
Because every pay period, it was 11 days from the last.
I'm creating problems that don't.
I'm thinking,
It's always been that way. I need a drink.
yeah,
I don't know where the closest
people
one
will.
is.
Yeah, you guys are gonna be the ones that hear it, so. All right, so moving forward, I guess, for.
I'll figure out how much it is and give you that information and you choose to do with it. How's that?
Salary go down per hour.
My terrible signature.
Pay periods.
So the general consensus is at this particular moment, don't worry about that, Carolyn, because if, you know,
I mean,
Layla said it, everybody knows the deal. We get an extra paycheck this year.
Well, I mean, you know,
If you've been here for a while, if you're a new hire, it's gonna be confusing, but. if you-
maybe, yeah.
So, okay, so, but as far as general consensus, for the time being, we're just going to not do a full raise, but go with the ARP recommendation of $5,000 tentatively for the budget for the year coming up.
Like mine.
It's based on the work.
So don't factor in anything at the moment. Let's see what flies out of health and welfare, because they get that to us, this coming month? So, yeah, and then that will disseminate. When would we be able to disseminate those bonuses?
it depends on how long it takes to get through that process.
Well, they're gonna be bringing it to budget or They're having their meeting on June the 7th where they give the final decision.
So if they make the final decision on June 7th, then it'll come back to financial management in July.
They got me on 24.
Crap.
You're by- you're-
They needed to do it this month, didn't they?
44 paychecks was all.
Back to this.
I mean, so we're talking, if it doesn't come, then it'll have to go through everything in July. So the earliest it would be paid out would be the beginning of August. That's the earliest it can be paid out.
26, I mean, 24. 26, I got you.
60 days.
They changed you guys to 24.
That timeline sounds fine.
Everyone.
11-cent tax increase from what the school board sent us. Just for a 3% to 4%.
They have.
11-cent tax increase.
All right, so we're gonna hold on that. Okay, next topic.
Please be something easier.
Do what?
Easier topic, please.
Yes, this is an easier topic. Okay, so these are examples. I'll be very stern with that comment. These are examples because they're still a moving target at this point. But I felt like you needed something to look at because I need to have this ready for next meeting. And so if you've not looked at it, then I can't do it. So this is recommendation. So there's two. There's a summary and there is a detail. And so the detail is basically a smaller version of all the stuff you've been getting all along. The summary is just like major categories for revenue and then department as a whole. So these are what I'm recommending. The summary would be what goes to commission. Is that right, Brad, that we talked about? The summary one is the one that goes in the paper and goes out for public appearance, I guess, for the public hearing. The detail one is what would be going to come to you all to make the final decision on and then go to commission for their approval.
I remember this being larger.
Well, that's just like a.
Oh, you shrank the top.
Yeah, I shrank the type and it's, yeah. Well, so you tell me, do you want to take stuff out and you want me to make it bigger?
No, I think it's fine. I'm just,
Do you want?
I was like, the last one that we got of these, it was like a book. Like,
Yeah.
I could have rolled it up and beaten someone with it and it would have been effective.
So that's why they're saying draft an example. I've been working on this and I've got a little bit more of it to do to go back and just make sure we have everything because there's been so many changes. But these are to look at. So this would be what the public would get and would go in the paper, the summary one, and then the detail one would be what would be going out to everybody. And I mean, if this is not what you want, let me know, because remember, I've not done this before, so I'm guessing at this point if this is what it should be.
Maybe you look like you're bored,
Absorbing it all and
That's what. And this is kind of based on what he did previous year too. And I know Jerry's not here, but I'm gonna say that he did a lot of work to help us get to this point. So even though he's not here, I do appreciate the help that he gave us to get to this point.
I'm not gonna praise anybody anymore. I said I'm not gonna praise anybody anymore. Because they leave.
Yeah, it wasn't a real good timing, but yeah, it's okay. It is what it is. We'll just do the best we can before we go.
If you buy it, then give me time to do it.
Probably. So, and it's not the full thing. This is about a third of what the whole package would be. I just printed out enough that you kind of get a flavor of what it was gonna look like. The revenue, I kind of just, it is what it is, but the other ones, I tried to break them by department, so it made it a little bit easier to read. The first one I didn't break it by department, and I thought it would look confusing because you couldn't see where one stopped and where one ended, so more paper to do it that way, but I thought it made more visual sense to be able to see it by department.
Thank you.
Now I can split revenue up too, if you want me to split it by type of revenue, because it is on here by type of revenue, but I just did all of it together. It was only 3 pages and I don't know, I thought maybe that one would be okay to leave together. This would also be, a version of this would be what would be submitted to the state whenever we want to get to that point. I was going to say if we ever get there, but we will. Maybe in June, hopefully in June. So thoughts, comments?
Am I missing
What,
it?
missing what?
Let me look again.
I'm looking for the highway department.
I don't see the highway department.
No, I mean, this thing is like 4,000 lines long. So I just printed off the first few pages.
No, I'm talking about the summary.
What about, oh, that's just county is all I did.
Okay.
Because it's just an
It's just
example.
101.
Yeah, so all I did was counting.
Okay.
Yeah, all the other funds would look just like this. They're basically underneath it. So for example purposes, I just put it in there, plus the fact that, yeah, I'm about, like I said, about 3/4, a little further through, going through and checking all these different line items to all the other things that we've done. I haven't gotten past 101 yet. The other ones will go a lot faster, obviously, because they're smaller, but I didn't want to give out that information when I knew I hadn't looked at it yet. So this was just for example purposes to make sure you're okay with the format and it made sense. Or do you want something different?
I think the format's fine. I think it looks good.
I mean, is it too small? Is there something you want me to take out? Do you want me to take out, you want me to take out the actual operations and just look at the budget side of it? Because I can take those 2 columns out. Most people seem to focus on what was budgeted the prior year, not what actually happened. If you look at the unencumbered, that kind of tells you what they had left from the prior year. So technically, the 2 columns that say actual operations, I can take those out, which will make the whole document bigger.
No, generally,
I can take out the amended budget because it is under the budgeted operations. So I can take that one out. I initially had it taken out and then I put it back in at the last minute.
because the amendments generally are something that's came up random. It's not, you know,
I mean, they've been all sorts of stuff, but, I mean, it would help if I took out the column that says amended budget under actual operations. So if I just change the 2021 to actual, that kind of corresponds with what's over here on the summary one as well.
Yeah.
And that will create where I can have it bigger. There was a percentage in here too. I took it out because most people want to see the dollar difference. based on comments, so I just took it out. When we do this to present, I will take all the colors out of it. I'll take all the highlights out of it. Those were just in there because of different things we were looking at, so I haven't taken all that out yet. Because we'll run it on, probably on the black and white copy, or we'll take it out and have it copied. Because we can't run it on the little printers that we've got because it's just too massive of a document.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'll have to take all that out or it's gonna cost us a fortune to print. It's gonna be black and white.
Really, you have any problems with the numbers and everything on there?
Oh, I don't see.
Brad, you?
No, that's what I'm saying, I think the size, the font size. It's good.
I don't see nothing wrong with it.
Just buy a ruler or the, but
I was flipping a piece of paper over and running it up and down.
took me 20 minutes to figure it out.
I buy everybody those little dollar rulers.
It's your dollar.
I mean, I can't take that amended budget out because it is over on the other side under budgeted operations. I can take that out, so that would increase it a tiny bit, since that is kind of a duplicate column.
I'd take it out, the 2021 column, I'd leave the amended one, unless it's over there somewhere else.
It is, it's on the other side, so that's why I was thinking I could take it out.
Yeah, you could just rename that one the 2021 amended budget for where it says original, change that over. And that would save you 2 columns.
So, and I know unencumbered looks weird because of the way I had to split it, but I needed to make the column smaller, so.
Oh, that's okay.
It's not because I don't know how to spell or I don't know how to. I just needed it smaller, so I didn't have a choice.
It's fine. I didn't even notice it until you pointed it out.
Oh, I did. It drove me crazy, but I didn't feel like I had an option, so.
I just read it like Bugs Bunny, unencumbered.
I didn't make the letters. Because I thought about turning it sideways, but I was afraid that'd make everybody crazy.
I'm like her, I'm a little OCD about where you split your words. Other options.
Well,
Okay.
Excel wasn't written for English majors, so.
Right, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it looks good. Everybody else agree?
Sideways.
Right.
All right, so everybody good with?
Yeah, I think it looks like, just make the changes that you had mentioned there, just pull it out of over here and just leave it over here with this. That way there's not any confusion
Okay.
with people looking at the wrong numbers, so.
Yeah. You want me to go buy rulers? I can go buy like
And
30
for
rulers,
those
$30. I
that are
can
not in
handle that.
attendance when we've made this decision, that we will take them out and beat them if they say anything.
It's like, well, you should have been here.
So I'll go to the Dollar Tree and buy 30 rulers and a bag of candy, and I'll lay a ruler and a piece of candy on everybody's desk.
A ruler and a piece of candy.
That way they'll know to be sweet.
Okay,
Anybody else got anything, Carolyn?
next meeting is?
Okay, yeah, so meetings. So next meeting is the 23rd. That has been officially changed to a voting meeting.
Okay.
Yes. So then the next budget meeting is June the 13th, unless you feel like we need to meet more to discuss anything else. We can add more. I need to let her know tomorrow. Yeah, on June the 9th, there is a commission budget workshop at 6 PM.
I will not be here for that one.
Okay. And then we also need to add, but on June the 20th, that needs to be a public budget hearing. Is that the right terminology?
There will be a budget hearing for the commission meeting.
So we had the 9th and what, the 13th?
9th and the 13th.
And that will be at 5 PM and then on the 20th, and then the commission meeting will start at 6 PM on the 20th. And if everything goes well, then we can submit the budget and we will have met the state's deadline.
So you said the budget on the 20th is at 5.
But if it doesn't, then we'll just go into July and I guess we'll figure it out from that point. I don't have a plan. I don't have a plan from here out, so.
From my estimations, the school's changing theirs. I've heard the school's changing theirs.
So we're gonna try to get them to come back on the 23rd, correct?
They have to come on the 23rd with their
Amended.
request amended budget. And I think they need to come and ask for the school building funding, which I think they're gonna do a
On the
resolution.
voting meeting? You gonna bring-
Otherwise you can't.
We don't have enough time to schedule another meeting before then?
If you're gonna borrow money like that, or however you're
You're
gonna,
not gonna make the money. You may make a presentation. I know they're under the gun from the expiration of it. The amount of time it would take our bondsman or our broker to go out in the money market and obtain money the way that our interest rates are fluctuating right now, it's gonna be 60 days before you'll even get a reply back from them.
Well, that was gonna be my next
but
question.
if they never ask, they never know.
Yeah, I know, but they're dragging their feet. Well, Patsy, I'm saying, go with it. If they don't meet it, they go without.
It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be part of their upcoming fiscal year's budget. This is a project. This is outside of that budget. So they can come and ask and, and consider and everything like that, but this is outside. This is the project. So I don't think this is going to be in their budget. This is going to
So they
be,
can do the budget and then they can ask for the other, but, because that was gonna be my next question. Do you want me to call the gentleman
No,
and ask?
no,
Okay. I haven't done that yet.
nothing until documents are put in our hand.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I had not done that,
Yeah, no.
because the number just is
Because
everywhere.
what they do
at
is
this
just
point.
like, we've already asked, 3.5, correct?
Yeah.
We go through.
Yeah, and I've asked them for that twice.
Yeah, I know,
So,
but what has happened between then and now? They have run into one that couldn't get a bid. And two, everything's fine. Our prices are good. And then they negotiated with the contractor and now it went from 16 million with 4 million add-ons. And about 3.5 from the county. Now it's up to 30 million, well, 5.6 million. I think it is. And everything that we've done in the futility, because they have not made their mind, they still don't know what they're doing.
as the old saying goes,
Knee-jerk reaction, what they deem as an emergency, don't bother us at all.
Brad will recognize this phrase cleaned up. They don't know whether they're shot, snake bit, or powder burn.
Well, but it is. It's really embarrassing to be be an educator and with so much talent in education to come up with the most stupid management ideas I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I went through Jeffrey Bodine School of Management and they far greater exhibit. I think if I can see it, I'm 2 years late. What happened to them?
And I understand with the rising cost in building materials and different things like that, but one thing they don't want to get stuck in a situation of, like Brad said, futures just dropped by 50%. Went from 1,400 to 700 a month on building materials.
It is.
So they're trying to hit a moving target.
This time in Forest Mill is the worst time in the world of our economy in this nation since the Great Depression. Because at 30 million, you're giving 10 million away right off the bat and you're gaining nothing from it. Nothing whatsoever. And to sit here as an elected official and say, well, we got your taxpayer money at heart. We're gonna do you good. Let me kiss you on the forehead first, you know.
Brad, do you remember when they built the jail over there, steel was down real, low where they could buy it. They drug it on for what, 6 or 7 years, still went sky high, and that's when they built the jail.
That's just exactly what they did. Then you had to go in.
It went from like a $7 million project to like $24 million project, what the
They
footprint
went
was.
into valued engineer concept, and then they really, really,
They could cut out
Missed all over
millions just
themselves.
by losing the second gym just for tournaments.
Well, the second gym, wait, I was sold the idea on the second gym is they had to have a separate gym for that, because they were bringing because they're from Siam.
but for that size. No, practically, look at your two largest, Morrison Unit is Cloudland, it's small, they didn't have seating capacity. Look at Hampton, that was the next newest, it's 75 to 80% filled when they have special events like tournaments, multi-school tournaments. And I can understand that concept too. But to build a school with 900 students and have a gym that sets so much more than what just the students itself is, because you look at when you have multi-tournaments, everybody ain't in there at the same time. You know,
They
they
come in,
Yeah.
you know, like for one game and usually leave.
And then the next thing in their design is you look, I'm gonna have a building designed for 1,200 people. We're gonna have multiple people here. Where you gonna park them? Only here, we got a parking lot out here and you look and they've already, the engineer has already designed it and you count them 50 spaces. Where are the other 300 cars?
Is there a hayfield close by?
It turns out like the sewer. They said, well, we're gonna we put 800,000 in for sewer. The sewer line for 1.2 miles, which is in the millions. They must have made a mistake, sure.
Yeah, speaking of that, speaking of the sewer line, because of the water treatment plant, and it was a state-funded project, can they restrict access to it?
Can they restrict,
Elizabeth.
can who restrict?
City of Elizabethton.
Well, now, they have the right if you hook onto their utilities. Because you gotta remember, that's a dead end. So the barrel of your influence that goes to where the treatment plant's at, it's smaller and it gets bigger as you go to the treatment plant and you have more surfaces onto it. But what that barrel, the influence, if it occupies 50% of it, 40% of 30, well, up there it's so small. Well, they would have to go more than a mile and a half to increase the size of those barrels on the existing. Then you have to go from that point and hook onto the system for the influence capacity of 900 students, water use and all that, just for brown water, not storm.
Gray water or anything like that, yeah.
And they missed that totally, but we're sitting here telling them. And the next thing is, well, guys, who's gonna pay the city their 30%? Oh, we got that figured out. No, they didn't.
Seems like it's not very well planned
That's
out.
$10 million now. Well, it's like I told the architect standing right there, what was you thinking, son? Where did you go to school? I mean, you know, I hope you didn't go to South Carolina, I'll tear my diploma up.
Well, it's heading this way. 7 days from now, 6 days from now.
A fellow professional, but that cat failed 101.
Again, we're back to the argument of we need a project manager.
You get that.
I heard you had experience.
I told him, I said, I'll be your project manager. It's the price of a day.
Well, you guys are talking.
They said, what, you crazy?
This works out this on the 20th. You were voting to budget in, is that $5,000 going to be voted in if it all works out?
Again, there's a vote. There's a vote that has to come up. I cannot speculate which way, one way or the other, the vote will go out. The recommendation from the budget committee and these hearings is going to be that this is the direction that we need to go.
It's not a raise, I think, it's
go forward, but it could be voted on the 20th of June. Or the employees.
No, not the 20th of June. The Health and Welfare will deliver their recommendation to Financial Management.
I won't be there, but, and they're the 7th, so it'll be July before they come up with that. So you're gonna set a budget with no raises for the employees, and then you're gonna wait to July to find out if you can give them that 5,000.
I know.
You have to have that recommendation because they done voted on it.
Technically, no, we could do it on the 23rd.
I thought you could.
Now, there's two, but we've already paid for the county property when we bought the lawyer's building down here, correct?
Yep.
That's ARP money.
So was the funds for,
My thing is, the sole authority is the county commission.
60, you get, last night you give them
It goes
60.
to Health and Welfare, don't you tell them, boys, it's approved.
yeah,
Last night, the stuff for the bridges went through.
yeah, the bridges went on the ARP
So if
funds.
you say, if the full commission, they supersede anybody.
Yeah. All we're doing is
I don't know if you wanted to put it in the budget to do that.
we'll have, once Health and Welfare has delivered their recommendation, once they have delivered their recommendation, we'll have a good idea of where it's going, what's going to come forward as the option. And we could, without problem, make the decision at the June meeting if we chose to.
Yeah, Health and Welfare.
I'm just saying-
June 7th.
And I'm just saying that
Expecting it to come
the
out.
way that the commission had voted and agreed upon doing it was to go through this process to make sure everything got vetted.
Yeah.
So,
Financial management is on June 6th, so they don't meet until after. They are tasked to go back to financial management, but that's why they can't do it till July, because they have met the day before.
they reversed the meetings.
The financial management and brought it straight to the budget committee.
If we were smart, we changed the meeting date of financial management passed for this next month.
And put it
It's
out
on the
there.
6th of June, theirs is on the 7th.
Yeah, see, so you won't get it to July.
So you could change it to I mean, this has not been published yet, so you could change it to the 8th.
Change it to the 8th, and you guys can get it. on-
If they've got the list ready to go, that's the only thing. If I change it and they don't have it ready to go, we just,
2 days
Well,
later,
without Greg up top, I felt pretty confident.
but it may
well,
work
you know,
out.
too, I've got the roof over here.
It may work out for us that way, then that way you when you go to the full.
That's what he
Yeah,
said.
we'll come to agreement.
I
I told
don't
him
have any trouble.
Because I told Rob, I said, if anything fails in financial management, I'm not stopping the whole list. I'm gonna take that failed out of it and send it back to
Yeah.
you. Take the rest that's approved and send it
They
on.
should be able
But
to,
if the,
done on the 7th.
correct, that's what should be done. So, but if the employees' money, the 5,000, if it's approved, then it can go straight to the budget, which would be Monday if we have it on the 8th.
Exactly right.
You're supposed to give it to us. So what do you think? You're the chairman, you know what makes
I mean, I
sense.
can do that, but am I gonna have anybody here?
I'll be here because I'll be back from vacation.
Have a
See,
much
no,
more.
see,
I mean, you can do it, but we have to wear our guns that day.
need no night coat going on vacation.
What do you mean that day?
Vacation.
No, I'm
18
going
changes.
on vacation the week before.
So do you want me to change on here to June the 8th?
Let's see, it's got me, you, let's make sure before we do that. We got anything, let's see, I just finished.
We want the mayor to be there.
We don't have it, see, that's Monday and Tuesday. Monday is financial matter, Tuesday building and grounds, and that's on Wednesday. Is there anything on that Thursday?
We can't do it Thursday. Thursday is the
Workshop.
workshop.
No, wait, that's 8:30 in the morning.
We do it 8:30 in the morning. You got anything appointments?
No, well, I mean, you can do it at 8:30 in the morning on the 9th, I guess, if you don't want to do it on a Wednesday.
Or you could do it on a Wednesday morning, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you couldn't do it
Wednesday
on a
morning?
Wednesday morning.
Is that the 8th?
Yeah.
I'll try to be there. That's what. That's
Let's
about.
I mean, it gives almost a
Ginger.
month advance notice, so, well, not quite, like 3 weeks.
That clerk-
21 days. You've got 14 left this month. Well, tomorrow would be 13, and then be 20 days.
Dr. Acuff should be able to get the information to us, but then should,
Well, that's,
you think.
you would think.
There could be some issues there that he might want to have another meeting on, but we could, that should be able to come. Whatever you guys.
That's the only missing link right there in the middle is if he has,
It would be nice to know if that money is going to be there for the employees when you guys go in on the 20th. You know what to do with it.
you know,
Since there's no raises and everything, that would be
I feel more than confident there's gonna be money there.
I think the,
Looking at the list of where they've already cut it and everything, and I could see right off the bat, right at 1.4 million, that would be available easy.
the elephant in the room that we have to worry about right now is the radio project.
The radio project, yeah. But we have, that was in the 3.5, the 4 million.
Yep. 3.9, I think is what the final number on it was, or 3.9. So
I think the request.
at 3.9, that's going to be, I think that's a down payment. I don't think that's that's not the full thing. I don't think they will come in less than $8 million. The radio site is between 1.2 and 1.4 million dollars a piece.
Yeah, they set aside 3.7 million.
Yeah. So, and that's not including any radio sites, and there's other things that I don't think are included in that quote. And it's just a quote because we're going off the state part of it. Rumor has it that Bill Lee has put into his budget, but I don't think it's been approved yet, for them to pay for sites for the P25 system. So, and then there's another thing that's about to potentially come out on the P25 system is the state wants to see competition. So it's not just going to be potentially Motorola that can put in bids for it. Anybody that wants to match it or can undercut it if they want to make it more of a competitive environment for the radios and stuff. So, but yeah, there's a minimum of 2 sites needed in the county for the P25, most likely 3. So that right there is $4.2 million. You're already up at $8 million.
Okay, on their health and welfare's last, they have already penciled in 1.4 million for employees, a $5,000 bonus per employee as required. They've worked between March of 2020 and November 21 of 21. Current and active employees. So they're setting aside 1.4 million for that.
Yeah.
That's in the top runner.
But they added current employees, right?
Current, yep.
No, they had to
They're
have worked.
currently employed that
Current
work
Current
between those
employees that
periods.
work.
We're not giving it to people that are no longer working for the county.
Through November 21 of 20.
That'll leave out.
That will leave out
Leave
some
out a
people.
chunk.
Now, the nice thing is if the people that have quit during that time frame, it's going to leave a little bit extra.
Yeah.
So once that circles back around and we have those final numbers, then we can come back and get the ones that started work during that time period that are still here.
Go from November
They can't be
21
paid out of
to now,
ARP.
Oh, okay.
and 10 hires.
I think if they was employed, or that.
Yeah, as
Yeah,
long as.
because it, how, going to work a few hundred hours at $13 an hour.
They
You don't
just,
have to be there the whole time, but they have to be employed during that time and have enough time in, right?
And be currently employed.
November 21st
Yeah.
of
2021.
2021. Okay.
Now, what was not addressed, not that I want to start that, but it doesn't say full-time or part-time, so at some point that decision's got to be made. And I mean, that is the way it was,
I think if the part-time,
just do half.
it's got the hours in.
Because it is a lower amount of hours that are.
Lower amount of hours.
That probably would cover the part-time.
I was the one that gave the start and end dates for that, and it was based around the end of Tennessee's declaration of emergency.
Emergency. Yeah, I should say, I knew it was in November of 2021.
So that was,
Okay,
And he worked
23rd.
20 and 21.
Yeah, so see, now you're qualified.
So he qualifies for it. I don't know if you just want to limit that though, just full-time employees.
I mean, because
And I've
it's,
got employees that's left that cannot get it. And I've got at least three employees that cannot get it because they were part of the program.
yep. And that's a restriction the ARP funds itself.
That's right. You can't do nothing with that.
Yeah.
That's right.
But
Our meeting on 6/9, what'd you say it was gonna be for?
I'm sorry,
6/9,
6/9 is the budget workshop.
regular budget.
I may
Yeah.
say
It's the budget workshop. That's the full county commission workshop is on the 9th.
I'm not that mean, but you know, it don't bother me if my employees are
County
just
commission.
did not get that because they just started. Don't bother me at all.
Well, one of the things that if we give a raise, I want it to impact going forward, the starting salaries. You know what I mean? So if we're giving a raise, I want it to impact the starting salary that the county is paying. Not just, for the current employees, they get it, and then everybody still comes in at the old rate or a different rate. I like it to hit and raise that bar up, because we're moving everybody else up, so moving the entry level makes sense.
You get raises, I agree with that completely, unless I get an employee that for work-related reasons.
Just leaving that to me.
Yeah, we only just started a week or two ago.
Yeah.
I'm like Brad, I come here in a covered wagon.
Well, at least we make them think that, really.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for now.
Like a big one. Johnson, did we decide on the 8th, or you going